One more minute. Was this more time than you needed? Probably not. Good. So it was like more. Yeah. You wrote that book? No. That's his book. Won't that be awesome if one day you're like reading each other's books and stuff? All the novels that you'll read and write. Cool. All right, it looks like everyone is completed, yes? If you're not, you have some time. You can do it as we transition back out. We will have an activity in a few minutes, so before that, you'll have some time. Let me show you kind of what it does on my end so you can see, and then we'll review who's having issues. I guess, or not who's. I'm not going to like call you out on it or anything. But I do want to see kind of what's going on. All right, so it looks like, yeah, like everyone except for, hey, that's okay, that's good. Never mind the red, all right, because that's not, obviously that's not the issue here. I'm just going to try and see if I can block out who's doing what here. I guess I can't. Let me see. Let me just, oh, that's cool. Show answers. Cool. All right, so previous. So here are some of the answers. I'm going to make sure that everything is good with this. We got conversion. Few of you got only half of them, so that's good to know. The other half usually are convergent, divergent. Those are the ones that you haven't heard as often. So make sure that you are familiar with what you're doing with convergent, divergent questions. They are different types of questions. All right. So one has to do with theme. Oh, I don't know how they went there. One has to do with theme. The other has to do with comparisons. So you want to look at those. Look at those two. They are different. And then we show the answers to the next one here. Next, justified true belief for knowledge. Should have all have gotten that one correct. Some of you are trying a little too hard with knowledge, how we know what we know. This is all great. You know, it's fine. Give me a nice little paragraph there. But remember, it's a very simple definition, and words have meaning. So it doesn't have to be that we have to construct large explanations for something when 3 words can suffice that tell us very different things about what knowledge is. That it's justified, that it's in the realm of falsifiability, or that we can call it true. That is, it corresponds or coheres to reality or our perceptions of reality, and that it is a belief that we have. So a belief that is in our what? Where is knowledge? Yeah, we kind of asked that question last week. Can knowledge exist outside of if there were no minds or no brains even, depending on what your views are about that, or whether we'll have that kind of conversation in the next couple of weeks about mind and brain and how they work together. But if there were no intelligence, there would be no knowledge. At least that's the thing that we're going with right now. You can feel free to disagree or look up your own response against it. In fact, if you challenge anything we talk about in the course, like, oh, look something up and be like, actually, Mr. Morris, there is a view against all this. It's called this, and this is what they believe. I will give you extra credit. So, just to let you know, I am presenting a viewpoint that is a classical philosophical sort of starting place, but you're free to challenge it whenever you need to. So, justified true belief for now is what our working definition is, and then the last one here. Let me just pull it up. Show answers. Language, reason, perception, emotion. So those are the 4. Some of you said no idea because when we did the area of knowing chart, the TOK learner profile, I didn't actually sit and list them out, so I wanted to see how much you had read them or wrote them down. So it looked like many of you had them. Some of you are kind of guessing with facts and justifications and kind of throwing out some terminology from knowledge. It is different. Ways of knowing are different than the definition of knowledge, so please be aware. All right, so I will evaluate those, and you'll have maybe those surprise quizzes every so often, depending on how much new information, new vocabulary. That was something that I noticed in grading the external assessments the last 2 years, the idea of actually incorporating the language from TOK into those assessments, not sort of falling back on our basic understanding or our simplistic understandings of topics about philosophy, but actually utilizing the terminology correctly is very important to actually getting that diploma, which I know you're all trying to get. Just as a quick review of what we're trying to do in order to finish chapters 1 through 3, it's a large section of the text. It's about 40 pages. It'll start slowing down after this week. So in terms of reading requirements. And so you'll actually be doing, even though there'll be less reading, you'll be doing a little bit more reading, and we'll repeat the same sort of page numbers per the teams. And that way we actually have more information from several different teams when you guys are presenting. Do you guys remember when I'm asking you to be ready for discussion regarding your chapters? Yes. Thursday. So not only is it due, you actually need to make sure it almost like a formal presentation, kind of give it that kind of weight in your mind. So have some real things to say, some concrete details and analysis based on your section. Know who in your team is going to speak up first, so I'm not sitting there like, okay, team 4 or whatever, and you guys are like looking around like, who's going to go? I don't want to say anything. So make sure that you know who's going to say what, or at least who's going to start it off, and then other people need to finish. So I should hear not necessarily from everybody every week, but from different people, or at least immediately giving me some real information from the chapter in a way that other people can write down. So that's kind of the important distinction. It's not just blabbing about it, but actually giving me, almost like teaching it. Okay, here are your central points. Everyone needs to write these things down, right? As soon as I say things down, I can see everyone start moving. In fact, you should be ready to write things down today. Okay, so get that going. The things that we've already done, introduction and assignment outlines. We talked about some assignments, which you haven't started yet, but you will start them very soon. On being knowers, we talked about what knowers are, and that was the TOK profile. That's the definition of knowledge. We talked about questions. We did the learner diagram, and today we're working with memory and kind of constructing sort of the final ideas about the foundation of knowledge, which is what we're calling epistemology, the systematic study of knowledge. Theory of knowledge, in fact, the other name for it is epistemology, which is sort of what you're learning about. And I can't reiterate enough just how special it is that you are learning this, because most high school students around the country are not even beginning to talk about epistemology or these types of foundations of knowing. And I think they are at a disadvantage for it. I talked with somebody recently, it was my cousin's husband actually, who works pretty high up in Dish Network. And one of the things that he is interested in, he does the hiring panel for his company, for his branch in the West Coast. And one of the things that they're less interested in, surprisingly, is your technical knowledge of of trigonometry and engineering and all these kinds of things that you would think would be very important for working at Dish Network and actually as a technician or something. Instead, what they're looking for is interpersonability, their ability to change and adapt, to ask questions, to critically think about a variety of environments, and mostly just be a good thinker as much as a good worker. Because what can they do with a good thinker in their company with the money that they have? What could they do in order to make sure that they're also a good technician for whatever they do? What are they able to do with somebody who's a good thinker? as opposed to just a good technician who knows some basic stuff. Yes? They can train them, yeah, and they can teach them all the specific skills that they'll need for that specific job. In fact, they're almost kind of like hesitant when someone knows too much about a particular subject because they might be unwilling or unable to change that in order to fit their environment. So I guess what I'm trying to say is before you're completely specialized, you guys are learning that there's also a way to step back or to step to the side of all these facts and compare them to other things, or to just sort of step out of it and kind of figure out, okay, well, why is it the way it is? And so I think this is a very important skill. To continue our conversation on knowledge, real quick, rational and empirical are two sort of separations that we need to make regarding the nature of knowledge. So this is one of my main sort of divisions when it comes to knowledge. Our first discussion of knowledge as a thing itself was its definition. Justified true belief. Each one of those having a separate and important part. They are all necessary, and they are necessary and contingent truth. So they're very important, and they all work together in order to create knowledge. But then, how do I go about getting knowledge? What is that justified part of the equation? That is, how much can I have confidence in the things that I know? And there are two ways in which this happens. And you can guess, if you look at these two words, what are your associations, or how could you maybe predict what the two different ways of being justified in my knowing actually are? What are the ways to do that? Yes?
Reasoning and experimentation.
Okay, so reasoning and experimentation, or rational and empirical. That was good. So you can either do it through logical consistency, this is reason or rationality, it's a way of knowing, or I can do it by my sense perception, or the other two ways of knowing, language and emotion, sort of floating around in between the two and kind of giving it meaning, I guess, or life and communication. Through empiricism. So empiricism, or empirical knowledge, is knowledge derived from the outside world. You can maybe divide it very simply into, say, the knowledge that I gained from sort of internal calculations versus external experimentation or observation. These are the very important things. So what are the I want you to see how it works in language here. What is the difference between the following phrases? 2 plus 2 equals 4. This cat is orange. I was probed by an alien last night. Yeah. Okay, so what are the difference between those three different statements? I want to take a guess. Which one is more rational versus empirical? The top one. Why?
Because it's something that we know, we've been taught that 2 plus 2 equals 4.
Okay, that's an interesting, I think, counterclaim to the idea that is this really rational, or is this merely sort of a tradition that I have fallen into? That's an interesting question. Someone want to go against that. Is 2 plus 2 equals 4 a statement that makes meaning just because you've been taught it over and over again? Or does it actually mean something? You always have Simon and Garfunkel playing. Okay. Yes?
I was thinking, like, the way that you argue that 2 plus 2 is rational is because it's just a probably, like, if you have, like, this many objects, whether or not we call it 2, then this many objects we put together, we get the number that we call 4. And then we can't really change it.
Good. And I like how you've attempted to qualify the language of mathematics, whatever we call 2, all right, and whatever we call 4. It doesn't matter what language if I'm saying dos. What is plus in Spanish? What is it? Más. Dos más dos is equals. Igual? Ah! I knew it because I'm Spanish. Okay. Igual cuatro. Does it matter? Did it change when I had changed the language? Did it change the concept or the truth of the concept, the equation. Did the language change the equation's truth? No. The truth is inherent in and of itself in the properties that it displays. 2 + 2 = 4. We understand this. The notation makes sense because it has to. It is contingent and required of the definitions themselves. It would sort of be like, it can even replace the mathematics here, because you're really just balancing the equation. The equation forces it to be balanced, or you have problems in which you balance it yourself. But I could change it by saying, like, all wives are married. All wives are married. Or all bachelors are what? Are what? All bachelors are unmarried. Okay, just want to make sure you're. Come on, this isn't. These are rational statements that aren't. You don't need evidence. You just need to see that it is necessary as per the statement. Empirical, though, would be something like this cat is orange. Okay, how do you know if there were an orange cat here, right? My invisible orange cat. I said this cat is orange. How would you know that the cat is orange? Because I told you. You have to make an observation. You have to know what the language, the word orange means, and that your definition of orange would have to match mine. But once we can get all of these qualifications out of the way, we could come to a consensus about the observation of the cat. And this requires empirical observation. It requires evidence, and it requires experimentation. So you are passively or actively experimenting on the cat, whether you realize it or not. You're always experimenting, because the world's like that, even if you don't realize it. I was probed by an alien last night. Where does that lie? Huh? Empirical. Now, why would it be empirical?
Because it's not just a fact. It requires observation.
It would require observation, wouldn't it? And I throw that in there because it's a lot more fantastical. It becomes much more difficult to do what with this statement? It'd be very difficult to show or experiment on something that happened in the past. Certainly something as fantastic as being probed in the nether regions by an alien. Right? And like, I don't know why they would do that, but they always seem to do that when they get people up there. It's always they're like, they probed me, they touched me, or whatever. These people who are, no one's been abducted by aliens, I'm assuming. I'm not like treading on people's very important experiences. This happened to me, Morris. Giving me flashbacks. PTSD aliens. Okay. But at the same time, does that mean because it is not ordinary in our experience, does that mean that it could not happen at some low probability, but could it still be real? You guys are hesitant to say yes, but the question is, or the answer is, yeah, it could be. It's a very small amount of probability, probably, because it's so fantastic. But it would be something that we would want to be empirically minded about. And just because it's possible, does that mean that we have to believe it whenever someone says it? No, and that's where you filter your knowledge. Okay, so let's get some real definition. Rationality is intuitive propositions deduced towards knowledge. The key word there is propositions. There are two clauses or propositions that you arrive almost deterministically towards an answer, a third proposition or a third conclusion. And probably starting tomorrow, I will introduce the next week's topic. So we'll get into logic and formal logic and informal logic together. So you'll be getting a good background in that, and we'll be setting that up. It's basically mathematics, except with how language and mathematics work together to construct knowledge of the world. Rationality is intuitive propositions deduced towards a knowledge, particular knowledge element. There's a Latin phrase. They'll be going back and forth between different types of phrases. Latin is an important, I guess, academic language, so got to be fancy with it, and you sound really smart when you do it too. So you know quite a bit. You're like, oh, a priori. I know this a priori. Yeah, it's fine. A priori means that it comes before anything else. So before you even begin to experiment, you have already conceded an a priori truth about the nature of reality, about the correspondence to your observations and what's out there. And you've done so through rationality. So really, rationality is the foundation of experimentation. You have to be able to make sense of the world before you can begin to experiment on it. So we call this a priori, meaning you can't test it. It's almost a truth, it's a necessary truth that's required in the world. And we'll talk about this at the beginning of formal logic as well. All of logic is a priori. You can't test it. However, when we do begin to test things, because let's be honest, most of what we know is because we've either actively tested it or we have seen it in the world. And so we know that this is a majority of the things that we do to make meaning in our lives is based on empiricism. That is that we have experimented on it. Might have any of you guys stick something in a power outlet when you're little? None of you? Oh, you guys are the smart ones. or the ones that survive, right? My sister-in-law did that because she had parents that kind of said, learn by doing a lot, kind of acquaintance knowledge. Except when you're a little kid, it doesn't always work because you're like, so she did that. She stuck a fork in the outlet and flew back. And the parents was like, see, don't stick in metal, and don't need that acquaintance. Thank you. If you ever touch something that's about to go in the outlet and vibrates really bad or hurts you, you're like, oh no, do I need to go to the hospital? All worried, I'm gonna have a heart attack. I get all worried about this stuff. But experimenting, whether you want to or not, you're like, oh, geez, I can't touch metal when it's in the current. Okay, so your senses, your perception, all those concepts that are needed for evidence. And what we call this in Latin is Can anyone read that? Oh yeah, have you heard these terms or no? Cool, where have you heard them? Oh, you read them already. Yes. I like that. I like hearing that. So I should really be letting you guys teach me now already, because you're good. A posteriori knowledge is knowledge that comes after. It is contingent upon rationality, but it is very important because now you need justification for it outside of you. All right. We're good on this one, right? I already showed you this chart, but I just want to make sure that we're aware, justified through belief, that you can kind of see that there's different ways of using art to describe it. So this is an area of knowing to help sort of make things clearer. But what we see is that there's truths out there that I don't know or believe, and then there are beliefs that other people have that I don't know or believe. And somewhere in between, I have knowledge when they converge, when belief and truth sort of coincide. That's my knowledge. Now this is kind of missing a part, and that is justification. So you need some third one, I would think, in order to justify your knowledge as well, that there are justifications. There's an interesting activity that I want to do tomorrow in which I'm going to ask you guys to try and dissect knowledge and say whether or not you can, if there's anything that you can think of in which you can have, for instance, knowledge of something without justification, and see if we can come up with things to break Plato's triad here of 3 different things. I think there are ways that we can argue effectively against it, so I'm going to force you to do that, or at least think about some counterclaims, because we need to be doing that. And then this clearly shows that how science and then sort of philosophy, sort of either rationality, or in this case they're saying theology, which is a little bit loaded, this brings us towards truth, right? So world of ideas, world of objects. You can clearly see that this here has implications of the Greek world, because a lot of this had to do with spirituality or metaphysics, that the two kind of converge together to receive truth. So interesting, different charts used contextually throughout time. All right, last division, and then I want to do a quick activity before we leave today. Acquaintance versus description. Anyone actually see the Mona Lisa in real life? Anyone been to Paris? No. So you've only sort of seen replications of it. You don't actually know it exists, right? Or, yes, no? Everyone's like, yeah, no. I don't know it exists.
Well, I know where it is.
Well, hold on. You know, okay, so I just said it's in Paris. Hopefully you knew that before then. You should have asked the question instead of just said it. Anyone know what museum it's in?
I always say it wrong.
The Louvre. That's what you're always going to do when you're in Paris. Like, excuse me, where's the Louvre? I don't speak French, I'm sorry. I'm American. Louvre, yeah, the Louvre. You can't paint the Mona Lisa, can you? Or can you? I don't know. Who can paint the Mona Lisa? No. So if you can't paint it, you've never seen it, how do you know that Mona Lisa exists? You guys are like, well, I guess not. You're right, nothing exists. Like me, I can do what I want. Yeah, go ahead.
You're told it exists. You are shown different examples of instances where it was used to explain something in history or something along those lines. So you just have an idea of this painting that was made by this man who was very famous, and you know that this man who came up with all these ideas and this painting that he made, you must put two and two together to think that it must be real. If his ideas were real and his inventions or whatever it was that he did, and tied in with this painting that he made, you can kind of come to a conclusion that you think that it must exist if everything else he did does as well.
Very good. And what you're using is sort of a correspondence theory truth. We're going to come back to that thing. Very good. Well, did you have something similar or something to add to that, or no? Sorry, yeah, Natalia.
You can also look at statistics for the museum to see how many people come to see it.
Okay, so the fact that, so I kind of heard something about authority, but you said much more than that, so I don't want to just limit you. And then you're saying something about how many people have seen it, so there's some sort of consensus maybe. And you can see the quantitative data on that. Yes, and what else?
Oh yeah, I was also going to talk about people, like, if so many people in the world said it in, like, our time, it's very unlikely, like, the entire world has decided to convince us that something that does not exist exists.
Oh, that's interesting. So there's a lot of people who believe something, therefore it must exist, or at least something. Now, does this so let's say, because then there's like billions of people that think that God exists and all this other kind of interesting miracles or whatever, and there are people who go, no, it doesn't matter how many people believe it, it doesn't actually exist, some sort of delusion or imagination. So depending on your type of truth or your standard of evidence or the ordinariness of the object, that a painting exists versus something fantastical, I might be persuaded by something like consensus or quantitative data on the number of people or some sort of authority, but on other types of things I may not be. So this is kind of an interesting side exercise to whether or not Miss Mona Lisa exists. Only I have seen her in this classroom. I have seen her with my own eyes, at least I think I have, although they could have whatever. But you've all seen pictures and you've seen video and these kinds of things, so maybe that helps as well. And I can tell you here on my honor that she does in fact exist, right? Because I've seen it. But there are two different ways in which we know something. We could know something either by its description or by acquaintance with it. One philosopher, Hans Reichenbach from Germany, back in the early 20th century, if you can't say it, you don't know it. Meaning if you can't describe it, you can't say that you know it. Okay, so we're going to stop and just think about that for a second. If you can't say it, then you don't know it. What does this imply about what knowledge is? Beyond justified true belief, now what do you need to be able to do to it? Yeah, you understand it to the point where you can talk about it. So now we're kind of adding a framework here of actually communication. How do I know that you know something unless you tell me it? Okay, so this is one way of, other than that, can you really say you know it if you can't even talk about it? What's a cat? Oh, I got it in my head, but I don't, it's just those things, the things out there, that do that thing, the thing that they do, And the second thing, I guess I'm doing this is sort of acquaintance knowledge. So I'm like, I'm becoming the cat for you. I'm showing you this is what it does. I don't know what it is, but it's doing this. That I know more than I can say. That is, I've actually done it, so I kind of know it. I can't maybe tell you that about it, but I know that it exists. So another way of thinking about it, maybe it's a versus. Maybe there's a contrast here. Michael Polanyi, that's going to be weird, I don't know, Hungarian philosopher says, I know more than I can say. Which one is it? Is it I can only say what I know, or do I know more than I can say? And you guys play sports. Does this make sense to you from a sports perspective? Give me an example, if you could. Come on, do something. Tell me something, yes.
For like the first quote, if you can't say it, you don't know it. Like for example, sports is like a physical activity, so you know how to do it, but you don't know how to explain to someone how to do it.
Okay, so something about explaining to someone. How many of you guys have played your sport for more than like a decade, or not a decade, but yeah, something like that, a long time. You've done it for several years. All right, can you tell me who hasn't played any sports at all because I'm a loser? Or that you can't go anything.
Are you saying that people who don't play sports are losers?
I'm talking about myself. First, as a knower, that I know myself, according to Plato, myself is the geek. Okay, that didn't play sport. Well, I did, but I kind of was forced to, and it was not good. The biggest thing that they told me about my acquaintance with the baseball on the field? Good eye, Justin. That's what they told me. You know what that means? Good eye, Justin. Oh. Good eye, Justin. Balls. I just kind of I worked off the incompetence with other people's acquaintance knowledge of baseball that they couldn't throw the ball well, and then I could walk like so I was the best walker on the If I swung in most of the time, I'd like psych. Psych myself out. I'm like, you're gonna lose. You're a loser. Oh, I'm a loser. So I had a really bad self-defeating attitude. This isn't about me, guys. Stop it. Okay? Yeah.
I can give an example for piano.
Sure, piano.
I've been playing for 7 years, and there are songs that I can play just by hand memory, but I can't tell you right now what the notes are.
Oh, that's a good. You can't tell me what the notes are, but you could sit down and play it. Musical knowledge is a very easy way to do this. Other things like baseball stuff. Could you teach me how to hit a ball? You could kind of like describe it, but I'd have to ultimately do what? I'd have to do it myself. I have to get a feel for it. That's we get that. You gotta get a feel for it. Gotta get a feel for it. You gotta practice. So there's something that's like maybe more inherent to a kinesthetic awareness than just I can describe it, and if I can't describe it, I don't know it. Okay, so depending on what your view is, what you think is more important, to do something or to describe something, that might influence the way in which you talk about knowledge. Should I do it, or should I be able to describe it? Now, ultimately, what would be the ideal world, or the ideal knower? They can kind of do both. A really good baseball player can also describe it pretty effectively, couldn't they? At least they should be. Maybe not. Maybe the people in the I just totally. It's not the NBA. See, that's so stupid of me. What is the MLB? God, that was weird. I knew that because I do a lot of sports watching. MLB. Yeah. Maybe they don't know. Maybe they're just really good at what they do. They don't know how to describe it. But maybe the coaches or people who become coaches from the MLB, maybe it's because they can describe it. They become a batting coach or something like that. And then they can have even greater knowledge than just the acquaintance. So you get the idea that there is a difference that needs to be done there. Ultimately, this brings about what I call, this is a copyrighted Morris chart here. So you're only getting this here. No other TOK students get it. I don't know if it makes any sense or not. It made sense to me. I'm like, I need a visual. I need an art. I need art. A prism. Prism's beautiful because it's like the light and it splits the spectrum and it's Pink Floyd, it's all that kind of wonderful stuff. But you have a foundation. So the knowledge prism is the foundation of rationality. You have two sort of prongs to your prism that have the same side, the basic shape. That you need both of these proofs and truth tests and empirical observation. I need real ways of looking at the world, or I should say principles of looking at the world, and then actually experimenting on the world, and that sort of creates a knower at the top. That knower is reliant upon these presuppositions, such as rationality, and that these statements then are investigated against counterfactuals that correspond to something external in the world in the way that it really is. And then an identity in mind processes those, articulates them, constructs them in a worldview based on observation and truth statements. All right, so we're all perfect knowers now because we have the words to describe the knowledge that we have, right? Except that quiz that I showed you in the beginning is a little bit pesky. Most of you got 100% on it. Some of you forgot a few things. Because you forgot the words, those who did forget, it's okay. You'll get it. If you forget something, does that mean that you no longer know how to know something? We need to talk about what your brains do. And that's the sort of last thing here. So you don't need to copy everything. This is all online if you want to find it. But just sort of rationality, statements, and identity. This is kind of this prism here. Let's go ahead and do this activity right now because we have a few minutes. Real fast. I need sort of half the class to go outside just for a second. So you guys are going outside. Oh, I got this. I got this half of the class. Yeah, you sit down. No reason. So you guys are going outside just for a second, very, very quickly. Very quickly. I know you guys got to leave and do your Freer's deal. Who has Freer's deal? Okay. Well, oh, you're gonna do that? Thank you so much. That would be fantastic. That way I don't have to stop necessarily. Well, I know. Maybe I should start first thing tomorrow. Okay, I know. It's all right. They'll come back in a second. I want you guys to watch something real quick. You guys close your eyes out there. Tell them to close their eyes. All right. You're gonna watch something real quick. It's like it happened. It's like happening right in front of you. You don't realize it. You're just gonna know it once you see it. Okay, ready? Here we go.
Okay.
Good. Okay. Did you see it? Let's pay close attention. All right. Your question. I want you to write down. At what speed is the Malibu? That is the left car. Malibu. and at what speed is the Malibu at when? Oh, sorry, that's terrible wording. I need to change that. When it makes contact with the Bel Air, which is the right car. So, what speed is it going when it hits the other car?
32 miles per hour.
Okay, so you got some options here. Go ahead and write it down. Is it 30 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour, or 60 miles an hour? Again, what speed is the Malibu when it makes contact with the Bel Air? So write down what you think. Write down what you think. I didn't ask you to say it out loud. Just contaminated the pool of people. All right, as soon as you choose it, go outside, and these guys come back in. Yeah, come on back in. Yeah. I guess you guys don't have to go out. Just be quiet. You know what I mean? And then we can be ready to chill out. And then I'm just going to change something real quick. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Hide slide. Hide the slide. And then that stupid word. All right. Have a seat, please. I know you guys got to go. I'm going to be done just in a few seconds. You can see how quick this is going. Kayla, Kizzy's helping you out, guys. So say thank you to her. Keeps you in the classroom just a little longer. All right, Kizzy, got it? Hurry up.
Oh, shit.
By this time, I could have just been done with it and let you go. Thank you, guys. All right, shut it down. Those of you who are outside, you have something that, pretend like this is sort of just happening in front of you for the first time, but you gotta look closely. You ready? Listen, look, No, listen. Just look closely, okay? Ready? Look. 3. Look. Looking. You see it? Okay. You guys all shut up. At what speed is the Malibu left car, that is the car on the left, when it smashes into the Bel Air right car? So what is its speed, the one on the left? Just no one says anything, just write it down. Is it 30 miles per hour? Is it 40 miles per hour? Is it 50 miles per hour? Or is it 60 miles per hour? Right there. Now, if I did this correctly, this should be an awesome, I don't know, probably not. Probably nothing special. And someone tell me what you think. Yes?
Everyone said it's 0 miles per hour, and the other car was moving towards it. Something.
No, it was actually moving. You can clearly see it. Troy's like doing the tricky thing. Did you actually see it not move? Is that what you're saying, or?
No,
Okay, you're just being snarky. Okay. Snarky, Troy. Yes, Luis.
Mine said it was 30 miles an hour.
30 miles per hour. Anyone agree with Luis? 30 miles per hour. Everyone can do this, by the way. How about 40 miles per hour, raise your hand? How many do 50 miles per hour, raise your hand? How many do 60 miles per hour, raise your hand? Okay.
How about 12
Kilojoules, what the hell is that?
That's not a measurement.
Kilojoules?
It's a measurement.
Is that the electrical output or something? It's a number of energy. I knew a joule was like an energy thing, right? Joules. Okay, it is, in fact, 40 miles per hour. Now, it didn't work. The experiment itself. Those who were in here at the beginning, what was the difference that in the question here? What did I change in the question? Did anyone know? Did anyone notice? Yes.
With the first question you put in context.
It makes contact versus this question is what? Now, so even though it never seems to work for me, maybe we should just stop doing it. But you guys are all like tricksy about it. Trixie Morris telling us. So you're like trying not to do the thing. But yeah, go ahead.
It was on brain games. You're not supposed to tell us to pay so much attention. You're supposed to catch us off guard.
Okay. Well, thank you, Louise. Why don't you come up here and teach? No, I'm just kidding. That's good. Now, what they Loftus and Palmer. This is an experiment that the two experimenters, Loftus and Palmer. This is the last thing here. Loftus and Palmer, 1974. They did this to thousands of participants, and they had them look at a car accident, and they changed the statements, hit or smash. And what they found is if they used the word hit versus the word smash, they actually got lower speeds overall. So overall, over the quantitative data, they actually had this sort of happen versus the word smash, which is obviously what kind of word? What does it connote? What's the connotation of smash? That it's like real, and things crumple, and it's like intense and fast. So what they found here, Elizabeth Loftus in particular investigates this interaction of language and in particular memory. And I don't remember exactly what it is. You can look it up yourself if you're interested. But she was actually able to determine what she's theorizing is that it's not just you're leading people to say something. It's not coercion. You actually are changing the way that they remember something through language. So it kind of opened the door to the idea that what people know is a lot more malleable than what we realize. So they are able to, I guess, isolate certain events in order to get people to remember things differently based on language. And so a way a question is worded allows people to have new reconstructions of a memory, whether we did this or not, whatever. It's not the right environment, perhaps. But you remember something, and then as you're recalling it, you actually are reconstructing it. This has implication to what you know in the world. Because what you know might change over time, not the thing itself, but your memory of it. You ever started with a story, and the first time you say it, and then by the end of this time you say it to like the 30th person, because it's such a cool story, you got to tell it over and over again, that you realize you sort of stylized certain events together and kind of put them together so it had a greater impact. I'm not saying you're lying, although you are lying. You're a liar.
If my hand doesn't come back to you, he says that it's not good enough, and I have to come back and
Ooh. This paper is not good enough.
No, I did.
Freer says no to this, okay? What is it?
We're proposing the lab.
Oh. Well, no, I don't think it's a good proposition that you are. Okay.
This is
Pathetic. I can say that here. Pathetic. Okay. Conclusions, the way it's reconstructions of memory that you get, and then it can kind of. Now, this has implications, doesn't it? Think about how if you were to go on trial for a murder, because you're all murderers. You're all potential murderers. I know. Knowledge by acquaintance, guys. You never know until you do it. You might like it. Like, this is great. Yeah. No. Okay. Eyewitness testimony is malleable. What people think they remember can change if a lawyer is saying certain words to them. It's a reconstruction of a new memory. Memories are not static. Your knowledge is not static. It changes. It's an organic thing because it's stuck in your brain. As much as we like to think that it's somehow this great Greek temple that lasts the time and space, it is constantly more like a flower that's opening and closing and changing, and it's beautiful in its own way. All this kind of flowery nonsense. So this throws a wrench in things, that our brains are not perfect. That's why we have conversation about what you know. Okay, so that's all I wanted you to know. It's a doubt principle to memory. And then that'll kind of lead us into all sorts of areas of knowing. You guys are good. See you later. Sorry to keep you an extra couple minutes. Thank you, Kinsey, for helping out. So tomorrow I'm gonna give you your first sort of blog post, news flash, and then Thursday I'll get you a new blog post and you guys do a discussion with me. And then Friday we'll start logic and epistemology and new assignment. Hey guys, see you later. You were good thinkers today. Keep the good fight going. Who's got those bongos? I need more coffee. Goodbye, Kayla. See you guys. Remember to get those chapters done. Be ready to discuss tomorrow, Thursday. Wednesdays are late starts, so no. I keep saying tomorrow and I mean Thursday. You get the idea.